Hello, thanks for joining us here at the South Carolina Department of Consumer Affairs. My name is Scott Cook. I'm the Communications Director here at SCDCA. If you've been on any of our Wednesday webinars, you've probably seen and heard me before with some of our presentations. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about utility scams, and we're kind of doing this today because Utility Scam Awareness Day is going to be next week. So we're just trying to get ahead of that a little bit. And the day's kind of set up to raise awareness of kind of suspicious behaviors and evolving tactics that scammers use when they kind of target their customers and things like that. So just kind of important to note that these may involve utilities such as electricity, water, natural gas, probably even phones to some extent. We won't really get into a lot of that, but any of those types of services that you're using. And a lot of times they're not just trying to get money, but they may also be trying to get information from you. So we'll kind of talk about a little bit of those things and give you some tips to protect yourself and your personal information. Today, I kind of want to start with some kind of recent examples that I've found. I like to always show examples of things that are out there and things that you might see. This one actually came from Santee Cooper last week. I know that was a screen grab from when I took it, but that was from last week where they were, telling their customers on social media that they were getting reports of scam calls. And it's kind of good to point out that I like that they mentioned that this is the time of year when scammers kind of amp up these efforts. They kind of use these transitions where you may be switching over to heat and, using that electricity and those heat a little bit more than usual. So they know you may have some fluctuations in your billing and that type of stuff. So that's kind of when they start to kick in with some of these scam calls and things like that. So, like to see that our utilities are warning folks of things to watch out for. And I have another example here. This one came from Duke Energy. It was another social media post that they put out. This one was October 22nd. And of course, you can see that they put this out telling people to watch out for scammers who may instruct you to make a payment via prepaid card, a digital payment app, or direct transaction. So just kind of keep in mind, again, these are all kind of the calling cards of scammers when they start using these unusual types of payments, and I'm glad to see that one of our utilities was pointing out, take payments through Cash App, Venmo, Zelle apps, things like that. And of course, they put the warning on there that if you're feeling pressure to make a payment or give information to hang up, and that's kind of one of our big points that we will talk about throughout this presentation, is that urge to act immediately in these unusual payment things like that. Kind of our last example that I'll start out with is this warning that came out from the federal. It's a warning about scammers sending out a message telling people to pay with a barcode. So they were sending this barcode to people by text messages or emails and trying to get them to take that barcode to places like Walgreens, CVS, Walmart, any of those stores like that we all probably have in our community. And kind of the big message with things like this is, your utility isn't going to send you a barcode that you need to pay with. So that should be kind of that unusual red flag. So they're not going to, send you that kind of payment that's just incredibly different than how you normally pay, and it's only just this one-time payment that's going to be different than those month-to-month payments that we usually make. So anytime you're getting something like that where it's unusual, where if it's a barcode, sending you to a payment app, anything like that, especially cryptocurrency or a cryptocurrency ATM, those should be kind of those red flags for you. Just kind of know your utilities aren't going to tell you to pay in that way, and they're not going to demand that you pay that way either. So you kind of hear us talk a little bit about that throughout the presentation. Again, that's kind of one of our big red flags of all types of scam, or these unusual types of payment. And you'll hear us kind of talk about that a good bit as we get into our common utility scams. And kind of one of the most common utility scams that we hear people talk about or get reported are these demands to pay or else, right? So they're going to threaten you with some kind of disconnection if you don't pay immediately, maybe give some prepaid cards, might even be like we just said, cryptocurrency, or those prepaid debit cards, might be something like that. But they're going to insist that you give them that information and you're going to make a payment with it or else, right? So Just kind of think about those usual things that come out from your utilities. If you're on the verge of having a disconnection, there are requirements that they have to follow by law. So by law, they will send you one or more disconnection notices in the mail before they disconnect. So if you're getting these messages out of the blue, that's kind of that warning sign, right? So they are required by law to send you that notification by mail that there's, some type of payment issue or something like that, and you need to clarify it. You would originally get those messages in the mail. You're not going to get those by text message or a phone call or anything like that. And again, there's some of these requirements too. Your utilities in that process of starting to shut off service, they're going to give you at least 10 days written notice before that service is shut off, and then they have to send you a second notice a few days before that. So, if there's this threat that they're going to disconnect you today or tomorrow, something like that, where they're kind of rushing you into making those decisions, that's one of our red flags with that. So just kind of know with these disconnection issues that if it really is an issue, they have to give you initially 10 days notice before they do that, and then a second notice a few days before. So just kind of keep that in mind. So if you're getting those notices again that you're going to be cut off immediately, that's one of our red flags. And power restoration charges, or some of those things where your power may be out and then they tell you if you pay a fee, they'll get you restored a little bit quicker. A lot of times we see these types of things after maybe a severe thunderstorm, something like that, where there's been some sort of widespread outage. That might be a situation when these come up. And again, these phone calls, usually they're phone calls, they'll say you need to pay immediately in order to get reconnected. And that's just kind of not the way that these work typically. Usually if there is some kind of emergency or some situation where there is a widespread outage, something like that, your utilities go out and they're not going to charge you directly from the guy who's, outside working on your street to fix those lines. They're not the one who's going to take your payment, right? So anytime that there's somebody, even if it is electricity, water, natural gas, anything like that, that person who's coming to your door, generally speaking, isn't going to be the person to take payment for that restoration of service. So, normally those things just, you report it, you call that phone number that's on your bill, you call those power outage numbers or those loss of service numbers for your water or your gas, and you let them know. And that's kind of handled on that customer service end. You're not going to give them a check or give them cash or anything like that when they're coming out to you. Our next type of common scam here is kind of this overpayment tactic. And that's going to be when they maybe call you or, send you a text messages, something like that. They're going to say you've overpaid on your utility bill. And in order to get that payment back, some kind of refund back, you've got to give them your credit card information or your bank account information or something like that. And, if you just kind of think about that and start to kind of think about how you normally pay, they usually have those types of payments on record. So if you have overpaid, generally speaking, they're going to either give you a refund on that way that you paid already, or they might apply it, to your account. So next month you wouldn't pay that amount of money that you overpaid. So generally speaking, that's going to be kind of how an overpayment would be treated if it was legitimate. So you kind of know if these scammers are calling and they say, you've made some sort of overpayment accidentally and you've got to provide information to them, just kind of know that that request for information is that part of the scam. That's what they're looking for. So really just kind of think about how you normally pay, and if there was an overpayment, that would usually be applied through that way. Or, in some case, your utility might actually mail you a check or something, but most of the time they know how you paid last month and they would either give you a credit or they would put that payment through back on that way that you paid for originally. One of the other types of scams that happens from time to time is what's called an identification attack. And it might be where you get a phone call that comes through and then it's asking you to press 1 or give some kind of information like that to that call that's coming through. A lot of times those are going to be robocalls, something like that. So you get it, it comes through, might even be a text message where you start to press numbers, or you're responding to it in some way, shape, or form. And these are generally vague in the way that they're asked. So what they're looking for is you to kind of start that reaction with them and start engaging with them. They're going to keep it vague at first, and then they're going to try to get you to reply and get you in contact with somebody. So if you start replying to those text messages, you'll start getting, more information, or they might then call with a follow-up. So really, if you're getting these types of things where either it's a phone call or a text message and they're asking you, to press one for more information or whatever, generally speaking, that's not the way our utilities are going to interact with you when they're calling, or, things like that. So really the best advice is don't press one to kind of engage that conversation anymore with them. And of course, our next type of utility scam is that door-to-door person who might come by pretending to be a utility worker. And a lot of times they're either going to try to gain access to a home or some type of property, something like that. And I've got a little examples here that I'm going to show you in a second. But kind of the big thing with that is just kind of be suspicious anytime anybody's arriving at your house. You're going to want to just kind of think about who's there and why. If they're unknown, you can always call your utility and make sure that they've sent somebody to your house, that is in fact somebody working for that company. I know sometimes with some of the utilities, once they get into like subcontractors and things like that, it may not actually be that person from that company that you see day to day that's coming out and actually checking those lines or something like that. Say that with, power bills or, power companies, things like that, because I know a lot of times we'll have those, especially in these storm situations where it may be somebody from outside who's come in and, helping out in some of these types of things. But you can always call those power companies and say, did you send somebody to my house? And generally speaking, they'll be able to kind of walk you through that and figure out if that person is actually from the utility company or not, because they would know if they've sent somebody to your area. And kind of our quick example of that is some quick things to look for. With that, you might want to look for a company ID. Again, you probably see some kind of company logo on their vehicle or on their uniform, anything like that. And most times you're probably expecting them. If your power's out or if your gas is out or if you're having trouble with your water or what that kind of situation is. You've probably initiated that initial call to say that you've got some kind of service issue. So that would kind of be that first step is, are you expecting these people or not? A lot of times, you may even get sometimes with some of the tree trimmers that come through and things like that. I know that's not really quite utility scam related, but they would have those company IDs, logos, and should be able to kind of tell you a little bit of that information too if they're coming out to trim the lines, around those power lines, that kind of sort thing too. And usually they'll post stuff on their websites, the utilities, whenever they're doing those types of things. So you can always kind of follow those things. Again, you can always call them, verify those types of things, and you kind of want to watch out for the guy on the right? You want to make sure that anybody you're dealing with, you want to make sure that they have that company ID, that they have that company logo. And again, those unexpected visits are those times that you really want to start raising the red flags. And we always tell people if, the situation's up there and it is somebody who's unexpected that comes by and you're kind of not feeling safe, you can also always call 911 and get that type of reaction too from your local law enforcement, so they can, know that there's somebody out there who might be asking for information or access to homes who's not supposed to be there. So you can always notify your local law enforcement by calling 911 and let them know the situation. They can kind of help you verify that the person is supposed to be there. And of course, if you can't verify who they are, what company they work for, you don't want to give them access either to your home or to your work or anything like that. So if that's the case, you want to initiate that second phone call to either the utility, or if it feels like an emergency, call 911. And of course, you always hear us talk about kind of these phishing emails that come through from time to time. And of course, the biggest advice is just delete these suspicious emails whenever you're getting them, and not to click on anything, not to open up attachments or download pictures, respond to them, especially because you don't want to respond and give them any kind of information, either if you respond and say, I don't believe this at all. It's better just to delete it. You can report junk to your email provider. You can use those functions, especially if you're on a phone, to flag those emails as potential phishing, things like that. And you'll also want to notify your utility company that you're getting these types of messages. And we say that so that way you can kind of warn other people or kind of warn them that somebody's pretending to be that utility company, things like that. So that will kind of help everybody if you're reporting these things, not only to your email provider, but also to your utility company. And we've got a little example here. I know this one, if you see the date on there, it is a little bit older, but it's a good example of the types of things that will come in. So kind of that first box there that we have kind of on the email address that's coming in, a lot of times they will pretend to be that energy company and they'll have it set up with their email where it looks like that utility that you use or one that's, in your area. These guys know who these service providers are and they mimic them pretty well sometimes. But that first kind of thing you can do is take a look at that email address name and kind of see what's coming in there. And you might see something like we've got boxed off on this one with extra letters, numbers, things like that are on there. That's a good sign. Right below that where it says your name, it's not in one of the boxes, but one thing you might also want to look at, look at this too. You might even want to see how many people the email has gone to. If your utility company or a legitimate company is really trying to get a hold of you, it's probably just going to you. If you see 50 other people listed there, that's a pretty big sign that, something's not legitimate. There's no way that your, electric utility or even, a bank or any kind of legitimate company that's sharing personal financial information or anything like that, they're not going to email 50 other random people about your account. So just kind of keep that in mind too as you're looking at these types of things. A lot of these emails will kind of use these utility graphics company logos, things like that. So that's kind of why we have that box on that one. So just kind of keep in mind they will try to pretend to be these other companies and they'll kind of mimic everything that you might normally get in those emails. So they might have all those logos and company names and some of that billing stuff that looks like you normally would get in your bills. When you get them in email, those might kind of show up that same way. And what you want to do too is kind of look at that kind of that third box that we have there where it says, please click here to verify your account information. Again, these companies have your account information. They're generally not going to ask you to verify something that they already have. They bill you every month, so they've got that information already. They don't need you to verify it, especially through email, something like that. So, there's really no reason for them to do that. And if you click that link, it probably goes to a website that's either going to get you some kind of malware or it's probably going to ask you for all kinds of payment information, stuff like that. So they're kind of, like we say, fishing for all those details about you. And then again, kind of that last box there, they're giving you that threatening message of if you don't do this now, by this due date, you're going to get a $12 late payment fee. I tell people sometimes these fees that they threaten you with, don't really seem like they're going to be incredibly much. The $12 late payment fee isn't that much, but you might, also be worried about that $461 that's on that. You might be thinking, I've already paid my power bill. Why am I getting another $461 bill with another $12 late payment? So that's kind of that, threat that they're giving you right there. You're going to have some kind of late payment and this additional payment, things like that, if you don't do something by a certain time, and you're probably getting these messages, within a day or two of them expiring. So they're trying to work you up thinking that you're going to have these payments right away if you don't do something. And again, best advice with all this type of stuff is don't open those links, don't respond to them, especially don't open any attachments or anything like that. And we don't really have it written on there, but that phone number, right? You can always double check those phone numbers. So you would take a look at that 1-800 number that's there. And what you would want to do is look at your normal electric bill, make sure that is that phone number that you normally get. So you want to use those numbers that are on your bills, those payment methods that you normally use. So you're not clicking those links, calling those phone numbers, or responding to these types of messages. And of course, one of the ways that scammers always attack us are through these spoofing phone numbers, and kind of like we just showed with emails, those emails can be fake, but A lot of times with phone numbers, scammers will call or, give you a call, send you a text message, things like that, and they're going to make their phone look like it's the legitimate numbers from these utilities. So you're going to want to think about the things that, if you actually do answer it, what are they asking for? If they're asking for personal information, don't give it to them. If they're asking for account information, don't give it to them, because again, if they're calling you, they should know your address. They should know your account number. They should know all the ways that you normally pay them, so you wouldn't be giving that information again to them on the phone, because you do the same types of payment probably every month. If you're like me, you pay the same way every month, kind of your routine with that. So if they're asking for all those details, generally speaking, they've got it already. So you don't want to give that personal information away or any of that financial information. So the best advice, just hang up, then call your utility company. Again, use those numbers that are either on their legitimate website that you know and that you use all the time, or those numbers that are on your utility bill. And this is some helpful information. If you've downloaded our slides, this should be all in there. And I believe we've got it on both the slides and that other little handout that we have. So those are good tips. But anytime that you're getting a call and you're in doubt, you can call those utility customer service numbers. These are the numbers that generally go with each one of our kind of major providers in the state. That electric cooperative link will go up, and it will kind of give you that information to your co-op too. So we don't have all of those listed there. There's a good bit of those, but if you click that, it will kind of help you be able to kind of navigate that little map, and you can hover over the company that serves your area and get their contact information as well. But again, a lot of those numbers, you probably already have them. If you're like me, you get those in your email every month, and it's the same one that they send you every month. The bill looks the exact same, has all the same contact information. You can always go to their websites, and you probably have a paper trail somewhere that you can go back and find those numbers too as well. But if you need those numbers, we've got them right there on the slides for you this week. And of course, if you've been on any of our presentations, you've heard us say this a good bit, but scammers kind of change their tactics a good bit. So there's always something new that they're trying, and we always don't know kind of that latest trick that they're trying, but we know the signs, they're always kind of the same, and they're doing a lot of the same kind of things. So we have some of our red flags that will help you kind of pinpoint those red flags that will help you figure out if something is a scam or not. And of course, especially with utility scams, they're, pretending to be somebody else. So, it's those imposters, right? So they're giving you a call or sending you a text message or an email pretending to be that person that you trust, or that company that you trust, that company that you use every month. So again, they know if it's a name that you recognize, somebody that you deal with, or you do business with, you're kind of more likely to be engaged with them and respond to whatever their request is. So just kind of watch out. That's that first sign that they'll pretend to be somebody that you know, probably somebody that you trust. And again, there's going to be a claim that there's some sort of problem, there's some sort of prize in some cases. But with utility scams, it's usually that threat of, immediately we're going to disconnect your service. Or if there's, already a widespread outage in your area, that problem that they may kind of come at you with is, if you don't pay, we're not turning your power back on. Again, that's just kind of not how utilities work. You pay that monthly fee to them. They're not going to ask you for money when they come walking up, to set up, either your power or your gas or your water during some sort of emergency or some sort of thing like that. Usually if there is some kind of reconnection fee or something like that, that's going to come, later on your monthly bill. So again, it's kind of that demand that there's a problem or something's going to happen. And a lot of times they're just using that to kind of get you worked up. They know that there's probably some sort of emergency or something that you're dealing with, and they're using that to kind of work in that financial demand for you. And again, they're trying to pressure you to act immediately. So they know if you think that there's a problem and you only have a certain amount of time to fix it, and usually, they're going to give you just a couple of hours or something like that. You've got to do this right now. You've got to go make this payment, or you're going to have, a disconnection, something like that. So they're trying to make you act immediately, and they do that because they know you're going to make bad decisions. If you're acting fast, you're either, not thinking clearly, and you're kind of rushing into these things. So you're doing things that you normally wouldn't do. So just kind of take a step back anytime anybody tells you you have to do something right away. Take that step back, think about the situation, and again, especially situations like this, realize that if there really was an issue with especially power, you're going to have that 10-day notice before. It's not going to be that immediate, I have to do this within 2 hours or else type of situation. So just kind of keep that in mind. And of course, this kind of goes back to how we started the presentation with those demands for specific payments. And we know scammers like payments that are, generally speaking, hard to get your money back. So that's those things like cryptocurrency. If it's a cryptocurrency ATM that they might send you to make those payments, or they might ask for gift cards, or kind of like that one utility said, those payment apps. There might be something a little bit different about their requests. So it's usually very specific way that they want you to pay, but also something different than what the normal situation would be. I know I pay my credit, or not my credit card, but my power bill. That payment goes through the same way every month. Generally speaking, all I have to do is go to their website or give them a call or whatever and just approve that payment. It goes through the same way every time. Or, if you're paying by check, you put that check in the mail every month. So just kind of think about what you normally pay, and if they're asking you to pay, a different way, that's kind of that red flag to that. And again, kind of our number one rule for a lot of these types of scams, or all types of scams, is just think about it and don't give away any of your personal financial information to somebody that you can't identify or you can't verify their identity. Sorry about that. So if you don't know for sure that they are who they say they are, don't give them that information. You can always hang up and call those phone numbers, go to those websites that you know are the legitimate source of information for these utility companies. And here's our kind of information real quick about what to do after a scam or even, scam attempt. You can call 911 and notify your local law enforcement, especially if it's somebody, like in this types of situations where we're showing where somebody's going door to door. That could potentially be a threat to people's health and safety. So if it's that type of situation, you definitely want to notify your local law enforcement about that. If you've given any kind of information over, you'll want to notify your bank or your credit card provider or kind of whoever that servicer is for that type of payment that you might have given that information over to. So as soon as you can do that, the better. You want to try to stop those payments from going forward if you can. So that's why you want to notify them immediately if you've realized, you hang up the phone and you realize you gave your credit card number over to somebody. Immediately call that credit card provider and let them know what happened so maybe they can stop that payment. And you also want to call the utility. You want to call them and let them know that somebody's, pretending to be them. So that way they can kind of notify other customers to be on the watch for that type of stuff. And of course, you can always file scam reports with the South Carolina Department of Consumer Affairs. If you click that link on the presentation right there, that will take you right to our identity theft and scam page on our website, and that will help you fill out a scam report with us. And of course, you can also call us and talk to us. 803-734-4200 is our direct number. And again, all those scam identity theft information forms, things like that, are on consumer.sc.gov. But you want to go to us, let us know. Again, you can also report these scams if you didn't fall victim to them. And again, that just kind of helps us know what's happening across the state and be able to better prepare other people for these types of scams that might be out there. And of course, we always like 3 ways that we can protect our information and protect our money. Kind of the big thing that we tell people is set up multi-factor authentication. I know all my utilities that I use set up multi-factor authentication on their websites. So anytime I log in, it sends me that text message that I've got to, enter in those security codes. Those are great tools. The FBI and Homeland Security, all these cybersecurity experts that we talk with tell us this is the number one thing you can do to protect your accounts. So you want to make sure that you've got something set up that's going to, make it twice as hard for potential hackers or potential scammers to be able to get into your accounts, even if they've got your password somehow. So we tell people it can be something you have, like your phone, that you get that text message or that passcode that's sent to it. You might have an app that you just hit, yes or no, was this you? Might be something like that, or it can be something that you are. So it can be a face scan, thumbprint. Just kind of find something that you're comfortable with and that you want to use. As long as you're using some form of multi-factor authentication, that will help protect those accounts. And consider your online payment options. If you're making payments online, if it's either through your utility or through shopping, especially if you're going on to online shopping, use those credit cards whenever possible, not a debit card. And we tell people that there's additional protections that your credit cards have to offer you, and they're going to protect you a little bit more if something goes wrong. Again, those debit cards are usually a direct line to your bank account. So if something happens and somebody has access to that debit card, they're able to drain your account. So if you're depending on those, credit card, or not credit card lines, but those bank account lines to be kind of, for your mortgage, for those utility payments, for your car payments, things like that, that information gets stolen and somebody has access to it, it can take a good bit of time to get that money refunded back into a checking line. So you want to protect that as much as you can. While you might get that money back, it could kind of mess you up on that mortgage payment or whatever you're kind of waiting for to go through on those, checking lines. So really kind of think about what you're paying with online. Credit cards are going to give you a little bit more protection. Generally speaking, you at least while you're challenging that fraudulent charge, you'll have that money kind of put back on your account or kind of stopped that payment from going forward for a little bit too. So you have those. It's a little bit more immediate response on those credit cards than it would be for a debit card. And of course, you want to monitor your statements. You don't want to go months without looking at things. Anytime you're able to go onto these accounts, make sure everything's, there's nothing unusual going on. If it's a credit card, debit card, anything like that, you want to know what those charges are and that they're charges that you actually made, and you want to challenge those as quickly as possible if you're seeing things that, or charges that you didn't make. And you can also set up alerts, especially on credit cards, debit cards, things like that, to kind of notify you whenever any payments are going through. Those are great tools to use. I know my credit card especially will set it up so you can get notified anytime, there's certain dollar amounts spent. You can also set them up for online purchases, anything like that. You can really go into those settings, see what your providers offer, and find the things that are useful to you. I know some people like to get notified anytime there's a purchase on their cards. That's a great tool to use as well. And again, just kind of take advantage of any of those little things that are kind of good for your lifestyle, and you'll get those alerts, and it'll kind of help you monitor what's going on and help you challenge things that happen that may not be legitimate. You can challenge those pretty quickly with a lot of those alerts, so you can get notified right away if those spendings happen. We encourage everybody to check their credit report regularly. Annualcreditreport.com. We give that information for that website because it is authorized by federal law. They have requirements for what they have to do and the information that they can keep about you and give away and things like that. So really encourage people to use annualcreditreport.com. There are, of course, other websites that you can use. Sometimes your credit card might give you access to a free credit report too. But annualcreditreport.com will get you access to TransUnion, Equifax, Experian, and you'll get a report from them. You can get it as much as every week now. It used to be just once a year, but now you can get that every week. You probably don't want to check it that regularly. It would probably be a little time consuming and probably drive you a little crazy looking at it that often, but you want to be able to check it quite regularly, once a year at least. You might want to do it, a few more times than that, but anytime there's any information or you're, worried about anything going through that might not be quite you, if there's a security breach involving your information, anything like that, you would want to go through your credit reports, look them over, make sure everything's accurate, make sure all the accounts listed belong to you. So it should tell you, I know with me, you'll go in, you'll look, you'll see all the addresses you've ever lived at least for the last, I think, 10 years or so. But it should list all the addresses you've been at, phone numbers, things like that. So you want to go through, make sure all of those details are correct and they actually belong to you. And it should list all the active credit accounts you have, or even things that you've closed. And it will tell you, how much money you have on those lines of credit, things like that. So you kind of want to make sure everything's matching up to what it really should be. And if you're seeing any problems, any, lines of credit that don't belong to you that are open, you'll want to make sure you challenge those through that website too. So annualcreditreport.com is where we tell folks to go for that. And if you're seeing inaccuracies or things that might be the sign of identity theft, you can have a fraud alert put onto your credit reports. Basically, you're going to notify either one of the three major credit bureaus. So you would go to Experian, TransUnion, or Equifax, let them know that you need a fraud alert placed on it. And basically, that's just going to make sure that businesses know that there's something that might be kind of going on with your accounts, and they need to take extra steps to verify that you are who you say you are. So if somebody else is trying to open up any accounts in your name, something like that, they're going to need to take extra steps to verify that person's identity. And kind of the big tool that we encourage everybody to take advantage of is to put a freeze on your credit reports. And again, that's a little bit different than putting a hold on your credit card, but when you're putting a freeze on your credit reports, you're basically stopping access to that information about you. It's going to prevent other people from opening lines of credit in your name. So somebody wouldn't be able to go in and put open up a new credit card, or, potentially open up utility accounts in your name, anything like that. So it's going to put that freeze in place, so no new lines of credit will be able to be created in your name while that freeze is in place. And to do that, you'll just go to Experian, TransUnion, or Equifax, their website. You've got to go to all three individually and put the freeze in place on all three. And that's going to stop other people from opening up those lines of credit. If you find yourself in a situation, I know last year I needed a new car. I was able to go onto the websites for those credit reporting agencies, go to their website, you thaw that freeze, and then you're able to open up like a new car loan, something like that. For me, I was able to do that morning, went to the dealership, test drove car, I liked it. By that point, my lines of credit were thawed again, so I was able to apply for those loans. And once that process played out that afternoon, put the freeze back in place, and it was all done and protected again. So those will really help you out. And again, it will kind of help prevent other people from opening accounts in your name. So if you're not actively kind of searching for those lines of credit, it's a good idea to put that freeze in place, and it's going to kind of prevent other people from using your information to do that. And again, you've got to go to each of the three major credit bureaus to do that. And that freeze is free to place, it's free to lift. It's pretty simple to lift too. You can set it on their website to lift for just a certain amount of time. So if you know you're needing to apply for lines of credit over a couple of days, you can set it for that. Or if you need it for just a certain window, you can do that as well. So you can really kind of take a look at that, and it's a great tool to protect all of your information. We're going to get into questions here in 1 second, but I do kind of want to mention that we have publications that are free to request that we can either mail, or we also have them where you can download them on our website. Our Ditch the Pitch, which is our scam prevention guide, is probably our most popular one, and we can mail that out to, if you have a group, we can send you a booklet or several piles of those booklets. Usually we stop at 50 for those. But we can mail those to you, our identity theft prevention guide, our credit report guide, and all of our other publications. You can go to consumer.sc.gov and hit that How Do I button, and then hit that for those publications from there. We've also got our social media platforms here. So if you are on Facebook, X, or YouTube, especially YouTube, you can go in and watch a lot of our webinars and a lot of our other videos just on a variety of topics. So we have things like HOAs and the law. We have some of our credit report information there, and we also have a variety of other topics. If it's about, I think we have some information on some of our solar issues that are going on, that if that's something you're looking for, I believe we've got some information on that. We also have some information on our YouTube just kind of about how to look over your utility bill and kind of understand some of the things that might be on those, especially the energy bills that you might be getting. We had some changes with some of the ways that those were being calculated, so that might be a good webinar sort of on this topic that you want to go through on our SCDCA TV YouTube channel to take a look at. And I do want to make sure people are aware, especially if you're in the Columbia area, that we will have a shred event coming up on December 2nd, and that will be from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. here at the Department of Consumer Affairs. We're on Greystone Boulevard, not terribly far from the zoo, but we're kind of the other direction of the street from the zoo, depending on how you're on the interstate. But we will be doing a shred event. We usually limit people to about 3 bags, 3 boxes of sensitive documents that they'll shred for you. They shred them on site. You can get a little information on our website, consumer.sc.gov, and we will be kind of raising donations, canned goods, things like that for Harvest Hope Food Bank during that shred event. All right, well, we appreciate you guys for joining us today. We do webinars every Wednesday, so we hope you'll join us again next week. But again, if you have any questions, let me know. Until then, we'll see you next week. Thank you.